Welcome back to the deep dive. We're diving into another big story today, really getting under the hood. And today, we're hitting the track. Formula One, specifically that absolutely wild Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Remember that? Max Verstappen pulls out this win and, well, it just stunned everyone. George Russell, other drivers, pundits. Nobody saw it coming. I mean, a 20-second gap to the McLarens. 20 seconds after how quick McLaren had been looking. It felt almost unreal. Like, how? So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack that how. We're digging into the big things that made it happen. Stuff like Red Bull's pretty radical engineering choices, Verstappen's own almost gutsy intuition behind the wheel, and McLaren kind of stumbling with their strategy. We've got some great analysis to draw on, and the idea is you'll come away really understanding the key bits that made the difference at Monza.
Yeah, it really was one of those wins that just defied expectations, didn't it? That margin, you could feel the surprise up and down the pit lane. And let's be clear, Verstappen's drive was incredible, absolutely legitimate, top-tier stuff, glorious win. But that 20-second gap, while it looked almost superhuman, our sources suggest there's a bit more to it. There was a bit of a trick, let's say. McLaren, even though Max was out front, they ended up on what's being called a suboptimal strategy, and that definitely blew the gap out, made it look even bigger than maybe the pure pace difference was.
Right. So it wasn't just Red Bull finding some magic bullet and vanishing. McLaren made some errors that kind of helped stretch that lead out. What exactly went wrong for them? Because they'd look so strong.
Exactly. Yeah, McLaren's race had a few key problems, according to the analysis we looked at. First off, they stretched a set of medium tires way too long, just kept going and going. They were clearly gambling, hoping for a safety car that just never showed up, hoping for that cheap pit stop.
The classic safety car gamble. Doesn't always pay off.
It really doesn't. And in this case, it cost them heaps of time as the tires just fell away. Then Lando Norris had a slow pit stop. Noticeably slow. Lost a few crucial seconds right there. And on top of that, the analysis mentions some kind of mix-up in the pit lane sequence. Like, they got the car order wrong during the stops or something. Some reports called it an unplanned driver swap in the pit lane order. Basically, another strategic fumble costing time. Put all that together, and maybe without those issues, the gap's more like, say, 12 to 15 seconds. Still a huge win for Max, definitely. But, it puts that massive 20-second number into context.
Okay, that makes sense. So a chunk of that gap comes down to McLaren's bad luck and, bad calls. But even 12, 15 seconds against a team like McLaren, that's still massive in F1 terms. So there must have been something Red Bull found, right? Some real technical edge.
Absolutely, you're right on it. And this is where it gets really interesting, technically speaking. The key was the car setup. Specifically, it was all about the rear wing, a really, really radical approach. So on Friday, Red Bull showed up with a super low downforce rear wing, kind of what you'd expect from Monza, right? High speed, low drag. But they took it further. They actually modified the upper flap to be even flatter, like really flat, trying to shed every last bit of drag for Max and for Yuki Tsunoda too, just chasing pure straight line speed.
Okay, standard low drag Monza setup, maybe pushed a bit. But then things got even crazier on Saturday, didn't they? The analysis we saw mentioned something pretty extreme.
Oh yeah, dramatic is the word. The source material highlights this pretty starkly. Someone on the team literally, they took an angle grinder and cut a piece out of the rear wing. Yeah, cut a bite out of the upper flap, just ground it down. It sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? Utterly audacious, pushing way beyond the normal limits.
An angle grinder. Seriously. Wow. Okay, so what did that actually do to the car's performance? Big gains, big losses?
Both, exactly. It was a massive trade-off. The good part. They gained maybe 6 to 8 kilometers per hour on the straights. Huge for Monza qualifying, especially those long DRS zones. Absolutely vital. But the downside was equally huge. They lost about 10 kph minimum speed in the corners. Think about the parabolica, losing that much speed there. It's significant. The car apparently became, and this is the quote, absolutely nervous, lots of oversteer, the back end just wanting to step out all the time, terrible balance. And the big fear was it would just shred the rear tires in the race. The engineers were apparently really worried, saying, this is going to cost us loads of time, we should go back to a safer setup.
So the engineers are waving red flags saying, Max, this is nuts, it'll kill the tires, we'll lose the race. How did Max react to that? Did he listen?
Not a bit of it. Classic Max, really, completely unfazed. According to the reports, he basically said, forget about it. Put this wing on. We'll make it work. Just total confidence. And then here's the really weird part. The truly counterintuitive bit. Normally, if your car's rear end is loose like that, because you've got hardly any rear wing, What do the engineers do? They take off front wing to balance it, right?
Whoa.
Make it less pointy, more stable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Balance the aero load front to rear.
Exactly. But Max, he demanded the opposite. He told them, give me more front wing.
More front wing, with the rear already sliding around. That sounds like asking for trouble. Like making the car even more unstable. What was he thinking?
Yeah. Well, the sources say the engineers thought it was senseless, completely against the book. But Max wanted what they call a pointy car. He wanted that front end to bite hard, turn in really aggressively. And he just backed himself, trusted his ability to catch and manage that super loose rear end through the corner. It's a style that needs incredible feel and precision. The engineers thought, this is undrivable for a race distance. It's just too knife edge. But he did it, stuck it on pole, won the race. It just showed his unique sensitivity, didn't it? Lauren Mek, who's become quite influential there, apparently said Max took the car set up to a very unusual place.
You can say that again. That whole story, the angle grinder wing, Max overruling the engineers, driving this supposedly undrivable car, it sounded like the stuff of legend already within Red Bull. Did this win actually shift things inside the team, like a change in philosophy, maybe trusting the driver's feel over the simulator data?
It certainly seems to have fueled that narrative, yes. The analysis points to comments from Helmut Marko afterwards talking to the media. He spoke about exactly that, a shift away from just blindly following the simulator. Now they're trying to blend the data much more with Max's experience, his feel, and the engineer's own intuition. And Lauren Mek, the engineer you mentioned, gets a lot of credit from both Marko and Verstappen. They say he asks the right common sense questions, that he helps foster better discussions, makes the car feel more predictable, more drivable, despite these wild setup swings. Max even said that before. Setups felt like shooting left and right, like they didn't quite have a clear direction. So this suggests maybe a more collaborative, understanding approach is developing.
And it fits a pattern, doesn't it? This idea of having engineers, people with deep technical understanding in those top leadership spots. We see that at other successful teams too.
Absolutely spot on. It's not just Red Bull. You look around the grid, the successful teams often have principals with strong engineering backgrounds. People like Andy Cowell in the past, Mike Cracknow at Aston, Andreas Stella at McLaren, Fred Vasseur at Ferrari. Having that technical insight at the top seems to help bridge the gap between the hard data, the car itself, and what the driver's actually feeling out on track. It's maybe what Marco's getting at, with Mek's role making that connection work better, a more holistic view of performance, perhaps.
It's a compelling story, for sure, especially coming off such a dominant win like Monza. But the analysis we reviewed also urged a bit of caution, right? A bit of skepticism about this whole new philosophy thing being the reason.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about narratives and maybe misjudgments, let's circle back to McLaren one last time. Beyond the tire gamble and the pit stop mess, were there other strategic mistakes?
Yeah, that's a fair point about the narrative. The analysis did raise an eyebrow, reminding us that Christian Horner was team principal during Red Bull's utterly dominant years, 2022, 2023, and the Vettel era before that. So the idea that suddenly there's a brand new philosophy fixing everything, well, it might be, as the source put it, making hay out of a fallen tree or just jumping on the bandwagon after a good result. Mek might be improving things, communication perhaps, but did he single-handedly save the car? The analysis seemed doubtful. Red Bull's core strength has been there for a long time. But okay, back to McLaren's other issues. Yes. Besides the tires and pit stops, the analysis suggests their overall strategy had other weaknesses. They probably ran too much wing, too much downforce for Monza. Ironically, a bit like Red Bull used to do when they were dominating, relying on corner and grip over straight line speed. But at Monza, that really hurts you on the straights, especially getting past people with DRS. And maybe even more fundamentally, they seem to misjudge tire degradation across the board, particularly on that medium tire. They expected it to wear out faster than it did. That meant their pace calculations were off, and it left them struggling to attack when they needed to, just unable to make moves stick. The feeling you get from the analysis is maybe McLaren came in a little overconfident, thinking their recent good form would just naturally see them through, and they ended up making these critical errors that just made Max's win look even more like a miracle.
Right. So putting it all together then, if we boil down this Monza miracle, what are the absolute core takeaways from this deep dive? It really sounds like a perfect storm.
It really does. I think there are three big things. First, you've got Red Bull's incredibly bold, maybe even reckless engineering gamble with that cut wing, just pushing the envelope way out there. Second, and you absolutely cannot separate it from the first point, is Max Verstappen's almost unbelievable ability. Driving a car that nervous, that unstable, to pole and the win. That's next-level driver skill and feel, just phenomenal. And third, you have McLaren's string of really quite significant strategic mistakes. The tire call, the pit stop, the sequence error, maybe the wing level, they all added up and amplified that gap massively. It just underlines how complex F1 is, doesn't it? It's this intense mix of engineering innovation, driver brilliance, and sharp strategy. Get one part wrong, and it can really cost you. It's never just one single factor.
Well, absolutely. Great summary. And as always, let's leave you, our listeners, with something to chew on. Monza, we know it's kind of unique. Super high speed, those long straights, the DRS effect is huge. It often throws up slightly odd results. So the question is, does what we saw at Monza Verstappen's super counterintuitive setup, this renewed focus on driver feel over pure data, does that signal a real lasting shift in how F1 teams might operate? More trust in the driver's gut? Or was this just a one-off, a unique track, a uniquely gifted driver in Max exploiting his rival's slip-ups perfectly? Could this driver-led setup approach even work on different kinds of circuits? Or would drivers who maybe don't have that same insane feel for a car right on the edge? Something to think about. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for tuning in.